Hi everyone! Today we're exploring the story behind a recipe that is as warm and comforting as a maritime kitchen on a winter morning: baked beans. This dish has deep roots here in Atlantic Canada, connecting generations through Sunday church suppers and cozy cabin breakfasts. Before we start cooking though, let's take a moment to look at where this simple hearty dish really began. Baked beans have been a part of Atlantic Canada's food heritage since the earliest European settlements. But the story starts long before that. Long before beans were baked in cast iron pots or ceramic crocks, the Wolastoqey people were already cooking beans and corns together, a nourishing and sustaining food. Across the Northeast, various Algonquian nations slow-baked native beans in earthen pots, buried in hot embers, often sweetened with maple syrup. This long, slow cooking method gently broke down the beans and created a hearty, calorie-dense meal, which was perfect for sustaining communities through the harsh seasons. When European settlers finally arrived, they learned from these Indigenous cooking traditions and began adapting them using ingredients from their own foodways. So we start to see salt pork being added, and molasses and onions. And for the Micmac, who lived through what is now Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and parts of New Brunswick, and the Gaspé Peninsula, the adaptation of these ingredients and methods came later and was a result of colonization. As colonization disrupted traditional food paths, the Micmac began incorporating the new staples, like flour, salted pork, and beans into their diets, blending Indigenous and European influences. By the 1700s, baked beans had become a Saturday night staple across the region. Families would cook them slowly overnight in brick ovens so that by Sunday morning, the beans were hot and ready for breakfast before church, and were often served with brown bread or biscuits. And of course, molasses, that dark, sweet maritime signature that came from the West Indies trade routes that passed through ports like Halifax, St. John, and Yarmouth. Cheap, shelf-stable, and packed with flavor, it became the perfect addition to the humble but deeply rooted dish, baked beans. Now let's bring this affordable dish to life. Here is how to make my mom's traditional baked bean recipe. You're gonna need half a crock of dried navy beans. So last night before I went to bed, I rinsed my beans and I soaked them overnight in cold water. Make sure your crock is no more than half full of dry beans and fill the crock to the top with water. For my crock, that was half a bag of beans. You can always substitute for brown-eyed beans, and these are the beans I used. In the morning, or today, I drained my beans, and now we are going to add the rest of our ingredients. As you can see, my beans swelled up overnight, and you're going to want about 2-inch space at least at the top of your crock. If it's a little more, that's fine. So to this, we are going to add half an onion. Just throw it right in there. 1 cup of brown sugar, carefully. Ooh, that's not gonna go nicely, is it? Don't worry, it's gonna go in. I'm just gonna use my spoon. As the water is added, it's going to break this down. Ooh, let's add a little water now. The last beans I made in a slightly bigger crock, so I wasn't anticipating this issue. All right. We're gonna add water in the end anyway, so if you need to add a little bit now to get your sugar to go down into your beans, that's just fine. Next, we're going to add 1/8 of a teaspoon of dry mustard powder. 2 tablespoons of molasses. I am using Crosby's. It is made here in the Atlantic provinces, right in St. John, which is about an hour and 45 minutes away from me. And you're just gonna dump your molasses right in. And I'm gonna give this just a little bit of a stir to mix up that brown sugar and molasses. Oh, let's add some more water. There's no water measurement directly to this because you're just going to fill your crock up to the top with water. And normally I would put 2 cubes of salt pork in this, but I don't have salt pork today. So I am going to use a nice big chunk of fatty, delicious bacon. And I'm just gonna shove that right in. All right, and now we're just gonna top up with our water. And I'm going right to the top. I'm gonna give that another little stir to make sure I've got no air pockets. All right, that's looking good. Let's get that molasses off the spoon. All right, top it up. Before you put your lid on, we need to do one more thing, and I forgot that. You should butter this rim because as your beans bake, they're gonna bubble up and there is going to be some caramelization of that sugar and molasses, and it will cause your lid to stick. But if we butter it, we avoid that. So I've forgotten to get the butter. I'll be right back. And I'm back with a fingerful of butter, and we are just gonna spread this along the rim. If some goes inside, that's absolutely fine. I just want to create a little release barrier for my lid. Perfect. And now that you've got your butter all on, don't forget a couple shakes of salt, equivalent to a pinch, and a dash of pepper. Not too much though. Alrighty, now we're gonna put our lid on. We're gonna bake this at 350 degrees for 4 to 5 hours. Make sure to check your beans as they cook because the water is going to evaporate and you have to top that up. So you always wanna make sure your beans are completely covered by water. It doesn't have to be filled completely to the top. The beans just have to be covered. All right, I'm gonna go throw this in the oven and I will catch you guys in a few hours. And there you have it, a taste of Atlantic Canada's past baked right into a humble pot of beans. It is sweet, smoky, and rich. And it's the same aroma that once filled kitchens from Halifax to St. John and every fishing village in between. And to be honest, it still does. Serve it up with a slice of brown bread and a drizzle of molasses if you're feeling nostalgic, and you have a delicious, filling, hearty meal. If you enjoyed this journey into Atlantic Canada's food history, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next historic recipe. Thank you for watching, and here's to keeping history alive, one recipe at a time. Enjoy! My mom's beans are the best.